Okay, so if you're looking at this, it's probably an E-Day. So I'm going to make sure that we cover this information. And as we look, okay, so the Oedipus complex. Um, it's essentially the boy falls in love with their mom first. It's the first female that they fall in love with, and it's the same for the girl. Girls look at their dad, and when someone asks, "Who are you going to marry?" and it's like, "I'm going to marry my dad," or the little boy says, "I'm going to marry my mom," and I will dig up uh, in America's Funniest Video, and I'll show you in a moment what that might also look like in humor. But let's watch this.
You love your mother, lots of us do, but not in that way. Oh, come on, please don't put thoughts like that in my head. That's not exactly how Sigmund Freud saw it, though. He believed that boys reach a developmental stage where they lust after their mothers, see themselves as love rivals with their fathers, and want their fathers dead. They don't realize that they're doing this because it's an unconscious desire coming from the id. It gets censored by the conscious mind. The Oedipus complex is named after the character who killed his father by mistake and slept with his mother Jocasta without realizing who she was. Girls go through a similar phase when they unconsciously fall in love with their fathers and want their mothers out of the picture, sometimes called the Electra complex. For Freud, growing to psychological maturity involved experiencing and then getting beyond the Oedipus complex. Those who got stuck in that phase manifested all kinds of problems and ended up on his couch. The anthropologist Edvard Westermark, an expert on incest taboos, saw it differently. He argued that we have an innate tendency to find those we grow up with domestically sexually unattractive, the Westermark effect. While Freud thought that we have constructed incest taboos between children and parents because children go through a phase of lusting after their parents. Westermark maintained that we aren't sexually attracted to people we've grown up with because they're more likely to be genetically related to us. It's nature's way of avoiding inbreeding.
Are you happy you got to see that? Yeah. So essentially, Freud believed that boys are first drawn to their moms, and um, the girls are drawn to their dads. Now let's see if I can come up with this. America's Funniest Videos plus Mary Mom. Hmm. I might just have to come and find this for you. So let's go back. Let's go back here. So identification, the process children incorporate their parents' values into their superegos. So, you know, this explains why some of us feel one way about something and others feel another way, because we come to incorporate our parents' values into our superegos. So some parents are very much about you be at church, you go to work, and other parents may not have that same um, drive, that the requirements, the expectations, and so that affects our identification, and that's what that is referencing there. They also learn gender identity. We learn gender identity from our parents. What is expected, what isn't expected, what toys we get, what color clothes we get, all of those kind of things. Excuse me. All right, so the term fixation, unresolved conflicts during our early psychosexual stages could resurface during adulthood in unacceptable ways. Freud believed that at any point in the oral, anal, or phallic stages, strong conflict could lock or fixate the person's pleasure seeking energies in that stage. So, if we struggle, um, let's say potty training, and we get in trouble. Let's say we are not very efficient or effective, or we get in trouble a lot because of the expectations that come with potty training. If someone says that someone's anal, then that means that they are very particular. So they want things done a certain way, and they will accept nothing but that certain way. And so that's a fixation that it manifests in other ways throughout our adulthood. So that's the idea of fixation. We are stuck on something. Defense mechanisms in psychoanalytic theory, the ego's protective method of reducing anxiety by unconsciously distorting reality. So we have defense mechanisms, and we're going to quick look at some here. So this is a chart. I think I can slide this over. Yeah. So you've probably heard of all of these different defense mechanisms. These are the ones that could show up on a test. So if you repress something, it describes it as unknowingly placing an unpleasant memory or thought in the unconscious. So if you had been beaten, let's say, or sexually abused or raped, maybe you couldn't deal with it, and so you repress it. You unknowingly place an unpleasant memory or thought in your unconscious, so you're no longer aware of it. Regression, reverting back to immature behavior from an earlier stage of development. So you're upset, you're throwing a temper tantrum, you just act like a child. You're in a situation, and to deal with it, to defend yourself, you revert back to a childhood. That's regression. Displacement, redirecting unacceptable feelings from the original source to a safer substitute target. This is something that we hear pretty regularly, like you get really mad and you can't express your anger at your friend at school. So you go home and you yell at your mom or you yell at your dad. That is displacement. You're angry at this. You might be angry at me, as a teacher. You might be angry at a teacher, but instead of hollering at the teacher, you go home and holler at your brother, or you kick the dog, or what have you. That's displacement. You're not mad at the dog. You're mad at someone else. But your defense mechanism is displacement, where you present that discomfort, that anger on someone else. Sublimation, replacing socially unacceptable impulses with socially acceptable behavior. So I want to slap you. I am really, really angry. Instead, I'm going to go for a run. I am going to clean my drawers. I'm going to wash the dishes. I'm really angry, but I'm going to do it that way. Okay, reaction formation, acting in exactly the opposite way to one's unacceptable impulses. So that is like, I think you're cute, and so I pull your hair, or I punch you, right? So reaction formation is the opposite. So if I hate you, but then treat you like I really like you, kind of a thing. Projection, attributing one's own unacceptable feelings and thoughts to others and not yourself. So I'm angry at myself, so I'm angry at you. Okay, accusing your boyfriend of cheating on you because you have felt like cheating on him is, the example there. And rationalization, creating false excuses for one's unacceptable feelings. So you're justifying, yes, I cheated on the test. You made the test too hard. It's your fault. So you rationalize it like you make it okay. So these are some defense mechanisms, and you're going to want to be familiar with them because some of them will show up. And even if they're not all the right answer, they will show up as your options. So assessing unconscious processes, Freud needed a road to the unconscious. So how did he deal with that? And that would be dreams, free association, and projective tests. So I will link these in the Google Classroom, and you can take the Rorschach tests. and see what you think. Now, some of these tests online, just take them with a grain of salt, but they're still kind of fun and kind of interesting. So I will link them for you. Now, the validity of the Rorschach test, clinicians vary in how valid and useful the test is. And then, I ask, and why might that be? Because it's all up to someone's interpretation. Like there's no clear cut answer. So that would be the rest of the information that you need for the psychoanalytic approach with Sigmund Freud. Now we're going to go to the humanistic approach. This is one of my favorites. This is, yeah. So anyway, quick history. Psychology looked for an additional focus. Freud seemed to be really negative, right? It's all these unconscious desires and conflicts, all this ugly energy making us do different things. Behaviorism was too focused on physical determinants. So I want to remind you that, behaviorism is about these outside forces influencing what we choose to do. And then as we look here, it says, why not look at ways that healthy people strive for self-determination and so we have a room full of healthy people. Why not look at how these healthy people are living? And then two major theorists, that big two, are Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers. You are already familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All right, so Maslow. People are motivated by a hierarchy of needs. The ultimate goal is self-actualization or reaching your potential. So if you have potential, why not work at, putting everything in place so that you can reach it? He based his description of self-actualization on studying
Rylan
those.
Larson, please report to Ms. Messenger's room. Rylan Larson, please report to Ms. Messenger's room. Thank you.
So self-actualization on studying those with rich, productive lives. So Maslow looked at Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, Eleanor Roosevelt, just to name a few, and looked at like what was going on. What did they have in place that allowed them to become these great people? He would study college students and found that those who were likable, caring, privately affectionate to those of their elders who deserve it, and secretly uneasy about cruelty, meanness, and a mob spirit are most likely to reach self-actualization. So it's not like something bad is happening to someone and you're like, yeah, that's awesome. Okay. What Maslow found is people who feel that way probably are less likely to reach their potential. So physiological needs, you'll want to be familiar, and I know that you probably already are, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basic needs are physiological needs, safety needs, belongingness and love would, move up the scale, esteem needs, and self-actualization. So if you don't have a warm place to live, you're probably not really worried so much about friends or being super creative. It doesn't mean you can't be, it just, you are less likely to be in this realm. It's not that you can't do anything in this realm, but you're less likely to do things towards self-actualization if you are concerned mainly about, getting out of a situation where you could die. And that makes sense. Carl Rogers is another humanistic theorist. Rogers believed that people are basically good and that self-actualizing tendencies are typical to humans. So, I don't know. I kind of like these guys. I believe that people are basically good and that a lot of people want to be their best person. He believed that unless something gets in the way of growth, people are able to work toward fulfillment. So if something becomes an impediment, then maybe people won't become self-actualized. But otherwise, in all likelihood, people are going to be working toward that growth. And he said that that's just natural. So a growth promoting climate needed three things, according to Carl Rogers. So we need genuineness. We need people who are open to our feelings and we are transparent, right? When people are open, that's good. Acceptance. We need people who will love us unconditionally, like unconditional positive regard. This allows us to feel safe. If someone just loves us for who we are, we feel good about that. And empathy, the ability to share and mirror others' feelings and reflect their meaning. So Rogers compared these three to water, sun, and nutrients that enable people to grow as vigorous oak trees. So we need to be genuine, we need to be accepted, and we need to have empathy in our lives. And when we have these three things, we are more likely to grow and become our best selves. So, in the humanistic approach, we have the concept of self concept, and that is a central feature to our personality. Rogers would say that a teacher's job is to help students know, accept, and be true to themselves. So, how do we test for this approach? Looking for the ideal self to align well with the actual self. So, we want our best self to be as close to our actual self, or the other might make more sense to you, that who we are today is we're moving toward becoming our best person. Conversations and interviews do this better than do standardized tests. So we move toward figuring out what our ideal self is and how we can become our best self by realizing who we are. And the influence of the humanistic approach. Hey, Brian. It has been used in counseling, education, child rearing, and management. We see these self-concept tests all over the internet and magazines. So, like, how are you, how do you choose your best mate? How do you become your friend? How do you become the best friend that you can? How do you be the best student that you can? How do you become the best nurse that you can? These are all kinds of like self-help kind of things. And so we take these self concepts like, where are you at? How lovable are you? Those kind of things. Criticism of these kind of things, subjective and not scientific. So, all these little magazine tests or internet tests that we take to tell us about ourselves, they're not scientific. It's very subjective. Someone created it and they're interpreting it. There's more that matters than the question, am I living in a way which is deeply satisfying to me and which truly expresses me? And it is naive. It fails to appreciate the reality of human capacity for evil. So, humanistic psychologists, we must accept ourselves and love ourselves before we can accept and love others. That's the idea. Action requires enough realism to fuel concern and enough optimism to provide hope. So, here we are. I'm concerned about this. Um, you're not doing something in your studying. So you are really close. You are so close to getting this. Why don't you come in and we'll help you and we'll bring your grade up? Because you're very close. With a little help, we're going to push you and then provide hope. Some critics believe that humanistic psychologists focus on hope, but do not give enough credit to the concept of evil. And there we go again. So humanistic, again, this one kind of fits me pretty well, is like pretty positive, but we can be seen as naive, not as realistic as some other approaches. Okay, so this is where we're going to stop. I will list a few things for you and give you the reading for the information that we just went through. And if I get a chance, I'll give you a couple practice things to do as well. So that's all for today. So have a great day. Get out and scoop some snow. Help your neighbor be your best self. Okay, so take care. Have a good day. Have some hot chocolate.